Welcome, my dear friends. This is Katerina here with you, and I am so grateful to share this time together. So I wanted to welcome you. It looks like we have international community. And let me know how's the sound. I'm using a new platform to broadcast. Yeah, it is not Zoom, Patty. Sound is great. Okay. Yes, darlings. I love technology. I love technology. So I've been playing with this new platform called Webinar Ninja. If you've ever been to some of my webinars, I love webinars, and it's considered to be the best platform of 2022. So we'll see, we'll flow with it, right? So I wanted to welcome you. Today is the day that we're filming this time together is very special day. It's Friday the 13th, which had a bad rap, right, for quite a few years as an unlucky day. But it's actually one of the days that was honored, that was honoring the divine feminine, and that was honoring the earth and sacred feminine. So when I knew that Friday the 13th was coming up, I start feeling this inspiration to give a voice about the sacred feminine and how we can really connect our hearts, connect our souls, right, to the Divine Mother. And also, I've been receiving more and more requests to give a voice about Divine Mother. And when I look at who is here, I see incredible people here. Thank you so much for everybody that I know, and some new souls are here. And thank you so much for letting me know where you are. We have New Zealand, we have Denmark, England, we have Canada. Let's see, Germany, right? Sweden, Mount Shasta, Big Island of Hawaii, Ontario, Canada. Yes, okay. England, Colombia, Vienna, San Diego. Yes. I'm so Utah. I'm so excited to be with you, beloveds. And this is really a conversation out from my heart to your heart. And really the intention for this webinar, because I have some slides, you know how much I love my slides. I have some story that I would love to weave through this presentation that really highlights the true story of our origin. Where did we really come from, right? And why does it matter? Why does it matter to reconnect to a much larger picture? And why there are some parts of our story as human species have been suppressed, have been ignored? Why there are some archaeological discoveries that have been shushed and tucked away, right? Why there is a particular narrative that is being presented in our public schools or in an organized religion, right? And the truly the sign of mature consciousness and intelligence is to keep opening ourselves to bigger and bigger storyline and bigger perspectives, right? So I wanted to give that a voice, and then share with you my personal direct relationship with the Divine Mother, how I see the world, because how we see the world directly impacts the choices we're going to make, how we see ourselves, our capacity, our abilities, right? So this is the reason why for this transmission. And when we look at the current events, gosh, it would be so easy to just crawl under the rock and never come out, right? So depending on what we focus on, if we focus on, oh my God, this planet is, we're going to self-destruct, and this is going to be a very dramatic ending for this civilization. This is one perspective. Or we can see it from a bigger bigger perspective, a bigger perspective that the universe is held in the arms of the divine, but I'm going to go deeper, that we are actually right in the center of the heart, one cosmic heart that animates this universe. And we are in the most safest place that we can be. And sometimes when the collective fears become turbulent and it's just heavy to live in a human body, right? This conversation can and everything we're going to explore together, we're looking at the Divine Mother and her different ways that she reaches for us, different ways that she calls us back to the intimacy with herself. This is where my sense of deepest security comes from. And meeting Divine Mother is initiatory experience. It initiates you into a new way of being, into a new way of living, into a new way of loving, right? And it's evolutionary leap of consciousness. You know, when I contemplate, I'm just give you a little bit of a background. Hi, love this wisdom and connection. Hi, Joseph. Hi, Veronica. Hi, Michael Bride. Crystal, the new mother. And this is, thank you so much for giving me this piece, Divine Mother. I see so many mothers around me who are bringing new children. And it can feel, it's the deepest sense of joy to bring a new child. And I'd not be surprised that the deepest terror can arise in a new mother's heart. Where am I bringing this child? Is this planet gonna make it, right? So if you find these questions in your soul, and it can be overwhelming to really sit and feel into that, the conversation we're gonna dive into together today, my intention is to bring nourishment to your heart, especially if your heart has been bruised lately, if your heart has been tired, and if you have been feeling low, low on inspiration, low on sense of confidence to navigate this reality. When we reconnect with the Divine Mother, we reconnect with the most powerful ally that we can have on this planet. We can move through our reality as a solitary human, only with our willpower and our sense of intelligence, or we can have the most magnificent guide who has entire universe at the palm of her hand. And so that's where we're gonna dive in. So are you excited? I'm excited to be with you, and this is just a beginning, a warm-up. So before we go into the presentation, I'm going to present to you a first module of my class, of a course that I have called Goddess Awakening. And Goddess Awakening, I taught that curriculum 2 years ago, beloveds, in the year 2020, where you remember what happened in the year 2020. We were shaken to awaken collectively, right? And in the, I believe it was April or May of 2020, Goddess told me, okay, it's time to teach this curriculum. And I brought this curriculum and we dove into contemplation of this ancient spirituality, the spirituality of the earth. And I wanted to share with you the first module of it from historical perspective, archaeological perspective. But before we dive in, let's set the field of intention together, because it's one thing to intellectually understand this information, but it's another thing to feel it with your heart. And the most direct place you can meet Divine Mother is right in your heart. Right in your heart. So let's experience this together. Yeah. This is where I source clarity, confidence, certainty, encouragement, compassion right in my heart. That's where the inner temple can be built with our intention. So if it feels good for you, close your eyes for just 50 seconds and allow yourself to fully arrive And if it helps you to visualize things, imagine that you have a flower in the center of your heart chakra. You can visualize your favorite flower. And this is the center of your innocence. When we invoke a conversation of Divine Mother, it's this great return to our original innocence. And when you feel your heart center, you feel your soul, you feel your intuition, it's all happening right here. And this is where you will meet Divine Mother. She has always been that silent, calm, steady voice. That's her voice. So the deepest dreams that you carry, the ones that you hold the closest to your heart, not the surface, not the shallow desires, the deepest dreams of your soul. I'm going to offer you this perspective that they have been planted there by Divine Mother. And the fulfillment of your dreams brings her deepest joy. So we can trust our dreams. And when we allow her mystery and her power and her magnificence to channel through us, we begin to live the spontaneous fulfillment of all our deepest dreams. So if you take away only this one thing out of the next 60 minutes we'll spend together, that every time you put a hand on your heart and feel your heart and see a flower opening on your heart, you're stepping in direct communication with the creatrix of the whole universe. The most powerful being in entire cosmos is the most intimate part of you. So available, so here, so attentive to you. Beautiful, beloveds. And now when you're ready, you can come back, maintaining this open heart awareness. And when you forget and lose your awareness, it's okay. There's nothing to judge. There's nothing to fix. You just return to that open, tender space in your heart. So the beautiful thing about direct personal relationship with the goddess is that the goddess or Divine Mother desires an individual relationship with us, right? She desires that intimacy with your soul. And you don't have to work for it. You don't have to be perfect for it. You don't have to bring her any sins. You don't need to do any of that. It's just your attention and your presence and your willingness to unpack everything that you think you know and to become empty and emptier and emptier, so you become a bigger and bigger vessel, right? To be filled with fresh wisdom of the Divine Mother that comes straight from the center of the earth, straight from nature, straight from wisdom of your body, right? So it's a fresh, wild, organic wisdom. All right, let's go into into the slides, beloved, that I prepared for you. And it's right here. I'm using this new platform. So thank you for being patient with me. And yeah. Okay, here I am. Perfect. Wow, so cool. Okay, I'm going to check with you to make sure that you see me. Do you see my slides, beloveds? Just want to make sure. Yes. Okay, perfect. Thank you. Yes. Okay, cool. So you see my video and my slides. I love this Webinar Ninja platform. So just in case you and I meet for the very first time, I'm going to take 30 seconds to introduce myself. My work in the world is all about helping people to step into their true dynamic power so they can bring their voice, their expression, their soul gifts, build the life that they're inspired by. And I teach online classes, I lead events, anything from private immersions, weekend workshops to international retreats. And I've been doing it for the last 8 years. And truly, my message continues to expand because I live in devotion to higher wisdom. And one of the topics that I love giving a voice is the topic of the sacred feminine, because my life has drastically shifted when I began to live in devotion to the sacred feminine, when my business began to be infused with her grace. Yes, I teach entrepreneurial topics and teach all kind of business mastery skills, but without this connection to sacred feminine, none of that really matters for me. So the sacred feminine connection is my core pillar. And I will continue to give this a voice because when Divine Mother begins to guide us, when Divine Mother begins to channel her creative vision through our work, it is, it's infused with incredible sense of magnetism, dynamism, and divine flow. So, goddess awakening is a term that I use to describe evolutionary leap of consciousness, right? That is all about unity. So maybe you have been studying fifth dimensional consciousness. Maybe you have been studying soul ascension, right? And soul awakening. You've been on this path of being drawn to this topic, and any spiritual tradition that you take will, any true spiritual tradition, right, will eventually guide us to this experience of oneness, right? So Divine Mother is another term that I use for oneness consciousness, where we come back to that original unity, right? Where we begin to live from the place of knowing as that separation is an illusion. There is only one unified reality, one unified field. I call that unified field Divine Mother, Cosmic Mother. And it felt as an inner knowing. So, what are the gifts of reconnecting our consciousness with Divine Mother? And if you are already living in that intimate, alive connection to her, how can we expand that? Or maybe how can you bring that message to your community? Because that message is more relevant than ever. And for me personally, the beginning of my reconnection with Divine Mother was by following the path of devotion. Devotion was the first vibrational fabric of reality, so to speak, when I went through this process of surrendering my life to spirit as a very conscious choice. And my heart began to go through spontaneous waves of awakening. It wasn't a mental awakening, it was a heart awakening. And what it looked like, it was a spontaneous, ecstatic expression of adoration of everything around me. So I would spontaneously go into bliss consciousness, into ecstasy, right? And I found myself in this path of bhakti, singing chants and mantras, or simply toning, right? And finding that sense of devotion through the bhakti path. And then I was guided to this realization that the heart chakra has an eye. And when the heart chakra begins to open, we begin to see the world through the eyes of the heart, which is a very radical way to live, right? It's a way of living through that heart center without needing to defend your heart. When your heart truly opens, it's impossible to break it, right? Yes, your heart can be bruised. It can experience sadness and intense amount of grief for the world, but it doesn't close down anymore, right? You're not afraid to take your life as is. And then you begin to experience a very steady protection over your life as a blanket of grace begins to envelope you. And this is another reason why I feel so strongly to give this topic a voice, because this divine protection, once we surrender the control, we surrender, right, this egoic way of living, and we say, you know what, higher intelligence, great spirit, please guide my path. And we begin to experience that. And then what I've also begun to notice, this past life abilities or parallel life abilities begin to awaken and bubble up and coming online, right? And divine wisdom begin to channel more and more, the more empty I would be willing to become. These are all the gifts that are available to anyone who desires to reconnect with the Divine Mother, with the sacred feminine. And there is also this beautiful gifts of flowering and receptivity and manifesting your deepest desire through surrender, right? And what are we surrendering? What are we surrendering? Well, we're surrendering control, impatience, demands, maybe some traces of entitlement, right? And we are willing to live our lives as a mystery unfolding. I often refer to my community as my fellow mystics. And why? Because a mystic is a person who sees his or her life as sacred, as filled with spirit, as filled with divine mystery. And a mystic is not in a rush to decode the mystery or demand any answers. A mystic is that consciousness in us that surrenders to the unknown with deep, unconditional trust, with delightful curiosity, with this playful sense of adventure. The less I know, the more adventurous my life becomes, because I am here with the most powerful ally, Divine Mother. And a Divine Mother envisioned your soul and my soul into existence and created you and I as a vision of her love. And she's here to guide and protect us. But let's begin with the beginning. Let's start with a piece of art. How many of you recognize this painting? We're shifting gears a little bit. And how many of you have seen this painting in person in Italy? Right? This is a famous masterpiece by Leonardo Da Vinci, where we have the representation of divinity, right, in a very specific way. We see this, this representation of divinity touching his creation, right? And it's very, very interesting that this has been the cultural belief where Leonardo da Vinci used to live. And the collective narrative for about last 3,500, 4,000 to 5,000 years, this was the collective narrative, the typical one that you and I have been born to, right? have been born to. And it's a narrative of a very specifically male deity that is a transcendental in nature. It's removed from creation. It created it in 6 days, right? And it was removed from creation. And humans, wow, humans, well, we truly messed up. We desired to be like gods. And we have been severely punished for that. We were kicked out of the blissful Garden of Eden, and we were living on probation. And woman, wow, well, woman has been at fault from the beginning of time, right? By pushing her partner into the sin, the original sin. So this is the narrative, and why it's important to understand the impact of those narratives. Maybe you grew up in a non-religious family where this narrative have not been introduced to you, but I guarantee you, you have been impacted by a societal narrative. If you grew up in a Western cultural bubble, in a way, the Judeo-Christian narrative is this one, right? If you grew up on the East, maybe you grew up in countries like India, right, where a completely different narrative has been presented. But I think it's very important to look objectively at these belief systems that we have been born into, right? You can take it anything from white supremacy to male dominance to these cultural religious narratives. And I really love examining the impact of those and questioning them and looking further and much earlier, because I believe if Leonardo lived right now and if he was introduced to archaeological discoveries that have been found in the last 70 years, beloveds, and I'm going to show you some of them today. It's very, very exciting. And I believe that if Leonardo was introduced to unified theory of quantum physics, that basically it's a science meets mysticism. They unified physics gives us scientific proof of oneness, that the universe is a one collective unified field. If Leonardo da Vinci have lived right now, right, I have a feeling he would painted a completely different painting. Maybe it would looked like this. And I'm sorry I don't recall the original artist of this beautiful, beautiful art. But if you send me a private message, I will find, or you know what, I'll just send an email when I find this artist. But I found her on Pinterest, and then I found her on Instagram. And I remember sharing this art for the first time because I was so moved by this beautiful art form, right? If we go back to the true origins of humanity, that we emerged from Africa, we were all started as Black human beings, right? And from my perspective, this image of the first prime creatrix that give birth to someone who is created in her image, this looks way more accurate from my perspective. Okay, I'm going to take a look at your comments right here. Hello, darlings. Okay, I can see your comments right here. And so if you right, living on probation. So very important for us to reclaim the lost origins. So we see our capacities, we see who we truly are from this perspective. So I believe our common human origin, when we study archaeology, anthropology, where we go back and we study the most ancient myths that exist on our planet, every part of myth is you. our common human origins, that we have emerged from Africa. Beloveds, who has been to Africa? Let me know in the comments, because Africa has begun to call me. And every place of power, whether it's Peru or India, I start feeling the call of the land, right? And I go there. So I start feeling Africa very strongly lately. But I just found it's very interesting that in Africa, the very early images of goddess, right? Also known as goddess Isis, they were found in the caves in Sahara Desert, 7,000 to 6,000 before Christ. Wow. So Africans worship the black goddess. Maybe because the black goddess, if we look at the starry night sky, and if we think about, the cosmos, right? The cosmos that's holding all the planets. The cosmos is the body of the goddess, and it's dark. Every black hole is another part of the goddess, right? So I find it's very interesting that Africans were worshiping the black goddess, seen as rainbow and earth, and they had a name for it. They call it Mavu Lisa. And in their cosmology, their prime creator was holding duality within. It had both genders within. It had its masculine expression that was called Lisa, a god of the day, solar intelligence, representing strength and heat and radiance, right? And there was the goddess of the night, Mau, that represented this fertility and motherhood and happiness. I find it's very fascinating that we had that beautiful example. And for the sake of time, I go really rapid with this information, right? To ignite your curiosity. But this is exciting things that what happened in archaeology. Allow me to introduce you this incredible woman, Michael Bright, who is here at this webinar. Michael Bright is an elder who dedicated many years of his life to research about the ancient spirituality, goddess spirituality. He's the one who reconnected me to Maria Gimbutas, who was originally from Europe, from Lithuania, and she is a professor of archaeology in UCLA. She has PhD. This is a very accomplished scholar who dedicated 30 years to excavating and archaeological research. I always admire those archaeologists. It takes incredible devotion to your craft to dig through the earth and excavations under a very intense heat, right? There's nothing glamorous about this profession. You have to be utterly obsessed about the topic to dedicate so many years and so much energy and effort, right? So this incredible woman, an author of 20 books and a PhD professor, and what she did, she basically discovered incredible amount of archaeological evidence from very, very ancient old European sites that were pointing her to the conclusion that the most original deity before 5,000 years ago was a female deity, that our ancestors, the most earlier people, have worshipped a female deity that they considered their mother, right? And they lived in adoration of that deity. They lived in direct communication and connection to it. So this is her legacy. She believed that those goddess worshipping societies, they lived in harmony with each other. They lived in harmony and honoring of the land, and they were highly developed societies with art and pottery and the language of symbols and a beautiful, rich spiritual life, and social and sexual equality. So, what Maria did, she helped excavate the buried history of our planet. And there were thousands and thousands of figurines like this that are traditional archaeologists, conservative archaeologists, would disregard these figurines as simply fertility figurines, but they were so much more than that. The reason why Maria Gamburus is such extraordinary scholar, she was fusing different areas of study. She wasn't just archaeologist, even though that's a big shoes to fill, right? She was also a scholar of anthropology, and she was one of the most well versed in different types of mythology. So when she would study a particular archaeological site, she would not only study what she would find, but she would study their mythology, and she would study their belief systems, right? And because she was the woman, and as a woman, she had this ability to see a full picture. She saw these figurines as a presentation of the beliefs of those ancient people. And those ancient people were creating these objects, right, that were sacred for them. And they would focus on these organs, right? For example, we see the organs of breasts and voluptuous thighs, right? And she found thousands of these figurines. But they were symbolic language that were pointing to the qualities of their divinity, to the qualities of the divine mother, Mother Earth that they were worshipped. And the qualities were regeneration, fertility, abundance, nourishment, right? Those are the qualities that were the qualities of their great divinity. Very, very powerful for us to remember that. So this is another goddess figurine, right? You can also see these voluptuous belly and voluptuous breast. These were not just fertility objects. They were a symbol of divinity because ancient people communicated their beliefs through art and through symbols. Regeneration was the big theme. Okay, I'm gonna hop on here to see. Grateful for her work, right? Exactly. Alana says, feels so strong to go to Africa. Me too. Maybe we'll organize a trip to go to Africa, right? But I really love this theme of regeneration that and fertility, right? That when we are in direct communication with the goddess, we can channel her power of fertility, her power to regenerate our lives. And this is what I was referring to, the work of quantum physics. I actually met Nassim Haramein a few times personally and was listening to his presentation. And it's an incredible scientist who is also a mystic. They do exist. And he has this incredible documentary called Connected Universe, where he takes his scientific background and he says, when I study nature, when I study how the natural universe works, I see there is order and there is connectivity and everything held together through this self-organizing, self-pervading fabric of life, a unified theory. So from my perspective, his theory is the one that describes in scientific way oneness or divine mother, how she's holding us together. And my direct experience meeting the goddess, I'm going to go back to here and I'll stop sharing. Okay, I'm back with you. My direct experience of meeting the goddess, beloveds, I grew up in one of the most patriarchal countries in the world. I grew up in Soviet Russia. I was born and raised during communism. And if you can imagine, during the communism for 80 years, 8 decades, all spiritual life have been suppressed and forbidden, and people have been starved from true connection of spirituality. But Russian people are, if we go way back, before the communism, before all of that, Russian people were worshiping the land. They're deeply pagan in nature. So that's the lineage that I come from. And I was always searching for truth. Ever since I was a little girl, I was searching for spirit. I was searching for God. I was searching for that one divine reality. And when I came to US, 23 years old, I was not exposed to the feminist movement in the US, or people finding this research about the goddesses and spirituality of the earth, right? I was not exposed to any of that. So for me, it was I was drawn to a shamanic path, and shamanism felt as the most congruent path for my heart, because shamanism is the path where you communicate with nature, you communicate with spirit in trees and in rocks and in plants. So for me, it was the path of shamanism and paganism. That blend was the most authentic. And I found my way into working with very powerful shamanic plants. Because on the path of shamanism, do I teach or train shamanism, Diana? I do not. I simply fuse that in everything I do. I live it. So maybe I do teach it, but not in a direct way, right? But I live it. And to me, the shamanism is living in deep reverence to life, right? You see that life is fused with intelligence. But I began working with shamanic plants such as ayahuasca. And what brought me to that path is a broken heart. I found myself in a very dark chapter of my life where I went through this heartbreak that I couldn't get out of this deep, dark space. And the moment I heard the word ayahuasca, I had a full body recognition that this is for me. It's my path. And when I sat with the medicine, I kept meeting this specifically female being. I kept meeting the goddess. And my very first ceremony, I felt like I was cradled in the arms of the mother that I've never had. It was like I was welcomed into this divine chamber, divine cocoon of intimacy, right? And Divine Mother was holding me in her heart and soothing the wounds of my soul. And then she would show me all of her expressions, all of her archetypal expressions. So before I found this research on the goddess that I'm presenting to you, I had a direct experience of her through a shamanic path. So there's unique ways to connect our hearts to her. Not everybody will walk a shamanic path, right? Not everybody will be called to that path. But this was my direct experience. And then she began to show me her all of her expressions, her warrior goddess and alchemical goddess and creative goddess. And I began to see that Divine Mother embodies this infinite number of archetypal energies, right? And we can get to know each of those energies and channel that energy through our being. So in the over 13 years of working with shamanic plants, I keep finding the deepest nourishment for my heart. And I keep sharing that message with my community, because Divine Mother will come to us, or will begin to call us, when we desire that most direct relationship with her, or with truth, with nature, right? Where we crave that intimacy with our hearts. That's my my experience with her, and it just continues to deepen. I I communicate with her every single day, as communication with my heart, and it's incredible to have such a strong ally, because you begin to hear her voice as the voice of your heart, and then you begin to find your communication. Some people are more clairaudience, some people will receive visionary kind of downloads, some people will experience it as a quiet sense of knowing that they're not alone in the universe anymore, that there is a particular divine plan that is happening for the planet, and that plan is benevolent. There is a wisdom that guides us. Okay, but we have a few more slides. Let me. Okay, I think it was this one. I'm loving this new technology, darlings. This direct experience, right? And let's go back to a historical perspective, because again, why don't we have this as a part of curriculum in public schools? I see the world where this will be a part of the curriculum of public schools. Yes, I may be super idealistic, but I feel it's a very, very powerful information for us to know that with the birth of the written language, things have radically shifted. Because before we had a written language, we communicated, or ancient people communicated, through images, through symbols, through art. This is why where we find the earliest messages from the early humans, they were all in the forms of art, right? So before the writing existed, wisdom of the tribe was passed verbally and through images. And this was done in a way that when we look at the structure of our brain, the right side of our brain is our inner mystic, right? It's the right side of the brain. When you go into the art gallery and you take in a painting, you can have a direct experience with the painting without anybody's interpretation of it, right? So we would be encouraged to directly engage with the mystery instead of just read about it. Read somebody else's interpretation of the mystery, right? So when we had a spiritual knowledge of our ancestors have been passed through the myths and through symbols and through art. And specifically, women and mothers were cultivating the spiritual life of their communities. Women were original storytellers, myth makers. Everything changed with the written word. And the first and the oldest written document is the Bible. And the Bible was the written document that went viral in our language, approximately 3,500 years old. And I actually used to be a devoted student of the Bible. I finished Bible college. I was a devout Christian for 10 years, from the age of 12 to the age 22. And it was a part of my growth, because I was looking for God, and I found a church that was devoted to a very particular spirituality, right? So I got to know the Bible from the inside out, literally, studying it with deep, deep devotion. And the reason why the Bible became so popular as the first printed religious document, because first of all, it became available to a common person. It wasn't just the stone tablets that could be found only in the temples, right? Like Sumerian tablets or any kind of ancient tablets, you have to go to the temple. You have to understand that symbol language, right? The Bible was translated and became viral, and common people could get access to it. And the Bible is also the most heavy edited document in the history of humanity. It has been edited and translated and transcribed and interpreted in so many ways. And the document resonated with a lot of people because it had that poetic expression. It was inspiring for a lot of people to connect with their version of divinity through a language of poetry, right? So that's the reason. And when we look at the written language and the written document that was only existed for 3,400 years old, but the impact of that one storyline, the impact of the story of creation that we get in the first book of the Bible, Genesis, right? The story of creation that was presented to us from a very particular lens, that the God created a man, and out of the man's rib came the woman. And you know that story, right? If you're not familiar with the story, could be very informative to read. But we are born into that ideology. And when we begin to ask questions, what was before? Who can tell us about 400,000 years history prior to the Bible? If you remember the figurines that I showed in the earlier slide, some of them are 7,000 years old. Some of them are 20,000 years old. And the Bible is how many years? 3,400. So there is a much, much, much bigger existence and a storyline. And I really love this one, the most ancient figurine that has ever been discovered. Where? In Africa. In Africa, 400,000 years BC. Wow. We are so much more ancient that we can imagine. And this one is called Tantan, African Mother Goddess. You can see the very similar lines of exaggerated forms of the breast. So the very primordial divinity is a source of our nourishment, of regeneration. It's a giver of life. It's not a punisher. We don't see any symbols that says, humans, you're being punished. It's a very loving energy that goes here. So I'd love to give a voice to this topic that we call patriarchy. And I'd like to share with you a different perspective of how we can dismantle the devastating impact of this rift between spirit and matter, earth and sky, human and divinity, right? The patriarchy has been around. Some people say 4,000 years old. Some people say 5. Some people say 6. And actually, patriarchy came to us from the Mongolian steppes, from the moment of domestication of the horse, where when people domesticated a horse, they were able to move. They were able to move from one piece of land to a further piece of land. And people began to conquer neighborhood tribes. And all of these themes of repression and control and exploitation of female sexuality and sexual repression, all of that happened with the arrival of the patriarchy. And what I would like to bring this perspective, beloveds, that really resonated with my heart. If this resonated with your heart, may it be a blessing for you, because we can fight patriarchy from the outside as the ideology, right? As the ideology that says women are inferior to men, women are a weaker sex, and the earth is here to be dominated, to be exploited as a resource. That's the truly beliefs of the patriarchy, right? as the ideology. We can fight it from the outside, but we really cannot change anything on the outside unless we change it from within. As within, so without, the ancient mystery teaching says. So when I was contemplating on what is my personal way of dismantling patriarchy, I kept finding that it all happens from within. And it starts with discovering your own inner patriarch within. You know, that energy that we can find within, that is brutal, that is critical, that is relentless, right? That doesn't know how to stop, that doesn't know how to be compassionate with yourself. That critical voice, you know, I used to call that voice my inner general, that very critical and demanding energy that can come through within me. It can be very shocking to discover an inner patriarch within yourself as a result of living in a society that has patriarchal ideology. I am finding that any true healing for the planet, of our own psychology, of our inner world, it begins within. When I find if I blame the outside world, if I blame patriarchal system, blame keeps me in the loop of the victim consciousness. But if I start looking at all of the ways that I buy into the system, that I keep the inner patriarch alive within myself, oh, I can do something about that. I can dismantle patriarchy from within myself. And that begins with rewiring and rebuilding all of our relationships, our relationship with the earth, our relationship with our body, our relationship with our sexuality, right? And our relationship with each other, our relationship with our voice. This is where the real work is. And yes, if you feel called to the sacred activism, right? If you feel called to a sacred activism, to engage with dismantling the system, follow that. It's a sacred calling. It's a sacred calling. But let's do this work on both levels. Both levels. So when I introduce this topic of patriarchy, I always say, because darlings, at first when I heard the term patriarchy, I didn't get it. I didn't grow up being exposed to the feminist movement. I grew up in the Soviet Russia during communism. We didn't have the feminist movement, right? We didn't have these, this incredible liberation experience that United States and Western Europe had. So sometimes I feel like a little bit late, a little bit late to the party, right? So if you have been aware of this, aware of the devastating effect that, this collective narrative of the divinity that is removed from its creation, that is punishing humanity for sin or for desiring to be like gods, then it's a really liberating time to look at this buried, lost history and begin to restore that connection with the feminine face of the divinity, which is all about fertility and regeneration and love and connection and unity and harmony. Yeah. Exactly, Diana says, I love this. We must accept that all of us have been conditioned and that until we excavate the inner patriarch and racist, we will never be liberated. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I really love that. It was a huge epiphany for me, is releasing the inner victim, releasing the inner patriarch and rebuilding the earth through collaboration with each other, through strengthening that sense of remembrance in each other, that we are messengers for each other, right? All right, beloveds, there's a few more slides. We'll finish them strong. And yeah, thank you, Sharon says. Sharon says, you share the truth in such a beautiful way. Thank you. Thank you. What do we have here? The beautiful, in ancient goddess worshipping cultures, both sexes were equal, complementary equal, right? And earth has been seen as sacred. And I already covered that by healing that split within, reconnecting our consciousness with the Great Mother. And this is the wisdom that I truly cover in my course, The Goddess Awakening. How can we embrace the wisdom of the cycles of time and the seasons and mysteries of the moon cycles and connecting with the animal intelligence and nature elements? Really, really powerful. All rooted in intimacy with the earth and honoring the process of life. One of my favorite ways to strengthen my communication with Mother Earth and connecting to her is literally practice seeing myself as her sensing organ. Imagine that Gaia is seeing itself through your eyes. She is sensing herself through your body. So the planet Earth is our divine mother, one cosmic great spirit, is our divine mother's body. It's a visible body of the great goddess. You know, when I really got it, when I contemplated that and I felt into the enormity of that, what came into being from this massive realization is my Gaia practice that I do every morning. When I wake up, I go outside and I touch the earth and I say thank you. So remembering that our hands have chakras and we receive, imagine starting your day by touching your Divine Mother. What a gift that Divine Mother is not this removed sky energy that we gotta like pray and beg for the attention. Divine Mother is always available to us, and she's not just powerful, she's so humble. We can learn our humility from Divine Mother, that she lets us walk on her back. We walk on the back of our mother. This is, I don't remember who was that mystical being who said, if you want to learn humility, God is the most humble. And of course, we're going to say goddess. Goddess is the most humble being. It's the most exalted one who is the most humble all, because she is embracing all frequencies, all of her range. But imagine the love of the Divine Mother, that she let us walk on her body. And her body nourishes us. So what I've been doing, beloveds, is I've been creating these earth mandalas. And sometimes they're very simple. I'll find flowers that are already laying on the ground. I really, I practice not picking flowers, fresh flowers. And when I buy flowers and when they start going old, I go and I create these mandalas and I offer them to the water, offer them to the earth. But it's been a beautiful practice, something like this, where you can put together a few leaves, arrange a few rocks, and it will ignite something sweet in your soul, that intimacy with the goddess. I promised you to stay here for 60 minutes, and I am getting better and better with time. So for a deeper dive, beloveds, if you'd like to go deeper, I'm actually offering my mystical goddess course. It can be found on my website. You also receive the link on my email. And it's called Goddess Awakening. And what it is, I basically take you through this whole curriculum that is designed to embody these sacred feminine frequencies. And we visit together 3 ancient civilizations. We go back to the ancient Crete, and we meet this incredible civilization of Minoan culture, where women were oracles and priestesses, and women truly in leadership of their country as a council of women. We travel to ancient Egypt, ancient India, and we meet these beautiful archetypal energies of the goddesses who are real forces. And I look at them as different arms of the one cosmic mother. And I wanted to show you, so this is the ancient Greece, this is the ancient Egypt, and this is ancient India. And of course, there's many other traditions that I could have covered in this course, but then it would be like a year long. You would have to dedicate a year to study this curriculum. So this is a very, it's a deep program, but it has 6 classes in it. And it's available to you as my webinar attendees. I want you to know that this is all being guided by Divine Mother, because I wanted to offer it to you for the next 3 to 4 days at 90% off. And the reason I do this is to give my community this portal of remembrance that Divine Mother has a benevolent plan for us, and she's calling all of us to be her emissaries. So you will receive this in your email follow-up. You can use this coupon that's called Goddess 111. And this course is offered at $555 all year long. You can get it from my website under the tab called Courses. For the next few days, when you apply this Goddess coupon, Goddess 111, you can write it down so it's easy for you to find. You can get the course for $111. And it will go away. This coupon will expire. So I'm opening it and I'm highlighting it for the next few days. And why? Because this is assignment from Divine Mother, and I want this material and years of research that you can study and activate these archetypal energies in your life and in your heart. So I'm gonna go back here. Hi, stop sharing. Yes. Oh, you're so welcome, darlings. And I wanted to share with you a few goddesses that you will meet. One of my favorite, well, they're all my favorites. One of the first one you will see from ancient Egyptian lineage is Isis. Yes. And Isis is the great alchemist. And the reason why she is represented with the rainbow wings, because she is here to help us remember our divine lineage as celestial souls. And with Isis, you're also going to meet her sister, Sekhmet, who is this alchemical lioness goddess who teaches us how to be fierce, how to fight for truth with a sense of fierceness, not even fight for truth, how to stand for truth with a sense of unapologetic courage and power. And then you're going to also meet Bast, which is also from ancient Egypt. And Bast is here to remind us about the beauty of sensuality and the beauty of motherhood. And from the Hindu tradition, from the Indian tradition, you will see and meet incredible goddesses such as Durga. I love working with Durga. And Durga is the goddess that rides on the tiger. And she is a very famous archetype of feminine power and skill and mastery. You will also meet Lakshmi, Saraswati. Who else? Well, of course, from the ancient Greece, the triple goddess, Maiden, Mother Crone, Hecate, Demeter, there's Artemis. There are so many, a whole variety of these powerful archetypes. And the reason why it's so powerful to work with archetypes, when we see that every path, every part of the myth is our story, we awakening these archetypal energies through this resonance, through energetic resonance. And archetypal energies can heal us, can empower, can awaken our dormant potential. And, I've been working with archetypes for the last 15 years. And sometimes an archetype will come through and I literally begin to shapeshift. My voice changes. The energy will start coming through and, I'll begin shaking. It's really, really powerful. And it's an archetype, that archetypal energy that is moving through you. So if you desire to access a much deeper strength that is not only yours alone, if you desire that sense of true empowerment, authentic empowerment, archetypal work is here to assist with that. So this is the power of this journey, is to connect with these feminine power archetypes that have not been represented well in our collective history. We see a lot of male heroes, right? Who slay dragons and defeat demons. Dragons actually benevolent beings who are representatives of Divine Mother. So the more we reclaim and reconnect with these benevolent feminine archetypes, and the more we learn about the feminine qualities of receptivity and collaboration and generosity, right? And the feminine qualities are all about regeneration. Feminine is not interested in conquering or dominating or winning by all cost. Feminine is here to heal, to regenerate, to bring new life, to bring new hope, to bring new inspiration. That's truly the feminine energies. And what we are in dire need of is to restore the feminine values in our collective value system, and to begin to value the principles of harmony, right? To begin to value the principles of beauty, true beauty, of surrender, of patience, of trust. Just imagine how different would be this time of Great Awakening if at least half of the population knew how to trust the unknown instead of panic. Just imagine how life would be different if at least a third of our population knew how to communicate with Divine Mother. And that we would move through this portal of collective rebirth, not as a panicked, disoriented, separated tribe of people, but as a unified community that knows that how to connect to our hearts. So this is the message of Divine Mother, beloveds. Message of Divine Mother, as you already know, it's the message of returning to our hearts, returning to the wisdom of our bodies, reclaiming our power, a power to speak our truth, to express our voice, to trust our dreams, to trust our sexuality, to honor our moon cycles, right? All of that is the wisdom of the feminine. Hi. Here we are. I'm so grateful to give this a voice on Friday the 13th. And this was considered to be the Day of the Witches. Once a witch, always a witch. I consider myself a lineage holder, not only of paganism and shamanism, but also of the wise women that heal. That's what witches were known for, nature priestesses. And like so many beautiful, benevolent things, this name of the witch has been twisted and tainted. Twisted and tainted. But the witches were original midwives. Witches were saving so many lives of women by knowing just the right herbs to prepare to soothe the pain of the woman in the childbirth. Witches were the ones who were called on. They were the healers of the tribe. They were the oracles. They were the messengers. They were the original artists. Wow, I got instantly dizzy by invoking that ancient energy, just feeling this collective power, because once a witch is always a witch. So when we begin to reclaim that archetype of a witch, of a woman that knows her power, a woman who speaks her voice, a woman that stands in her truth. And if you are a male being, you have a witch in you as well, if you're drawn to this topic. We begin to serve our communities in the ancient way by sharing our healing gifts, by sharing our soul's medicine in a way that is authentic to us. You know, one of the ways that I do it, beloveds, I build these curriculums, and I'm committed to creating more opportunities for my programs to be more accessible to a lot of people. I know for a lot of people recently, it's not been easy. And if I have resources that can help people, this is the reason I make them available for more and more people. So I promise to continue to be creative and sharing this information and the sacred knowledge and the archetypal embodiment for people, because we're messengers for each other. And these resources can inspire you to bring that knowledge to your communities, to be the voice for your communities, to start gathering these circles. I actually have witches gatherings that I call witches circles. And I've held a couple of them. And I invite my fellow wise women, and they're all at different ages. You know, we have elders in their 70s who have been carrying that torch of illumination for many decades. We have younger ones, you know, like in their early 30s, and we have a lot of women in their mid 40s, right? In the mid 40s, you stop giving a frack. I'm going to say a frack. You stop giving a frack in your mid 40s. And then when you come into your crone years in your 50s, ooh, I'm looking forward to that chapter, because it's going to be even more unapologetic expression, right? So I'm really grateful for your time, and I'm really grateful that you were here and you were present and we experienced this new platform. How was your experience with this new webinar platform? Was it fluid on your end as a viewer? Let me know in the chat box. Yeah, fluid. It says thank you. Thank you very much. So, okay, we'll keep this platform. And darlings, just a couple of announcements if you're curious about anything else that I offer. My team and I have been working tirelessly on the back end, making sure that we can open this new community, and hopefully it will be ready by the end of this month. And it's a mystical community that will be devoted to embodiment and to rituals and to these activating of our inner oracle, inner priestesses, you know. So that's coming at the end of this month. And then I also lead one more event that it's called Jinkies. So if you would like to come and experience learning together in person, I have one event coming up in California at the end of June. And that's about it for now. You will receive this replay. If you wanted to share this recording with your community, feel free to do that. Chrome was good here. And thank you for letting me know how was your experience with the new platform. We did it during the Mercury retrograde, which is really powerful. All right, darlings, thank you so much. I would just say, and the final words, the flashing, in the final words, I'd like to encourage you to greet Mother Earth every day by putting your hands chakras on her back and asking her to guide you. You know, it's the most exciting thing when she communicates to us and she gives us precise instructions for the day. And we become, we become her hands, we become her feet, we become her voice, we become her body. And that's an exquisite way to live. Truly exquisite way to live. To carry out her assignment. Yeah. Thank you so much, beloveds. I love it. I love it. Okay. I'm going to end the broadcast. And if all I'm going to say is thank you. Thank you. Happy 13th. Be blessed. Remember that inner witch within you, your inner goddess, and all of the archetypal energies that you can continue to activate. What a beautiful life. What a beautiful life. Until next, blessings and